All right, Erik Van Horn here with Brian Holmes, version 1.5 of Franchise Stories podcast. We recorded a podcast, if you want to call it that, about a week ago, and we were all someplace around the country, and some of us were in hotel rooms, others on the beach. And I love franchising. I love it. I don't know where mine is. But Brian and I were just talking the other day, and we're both franchisees. We were thinking, let's just open up Zoom and have a conversation and see where it goes. So that's what we're doing today. So we'll see if this actually makes it to anybody out there or not. Brian, any thoughts before I start firing away some questions?
Yeah, there's a lot of different times where we're having conversations just in day to day, and we're like, man, this would make a great podcast. We should have recorded that. That actually happened yesterday with me and David. We were talking about he was trying to decide whether or not to take advantage of an opportunity presented to him by a franchisor to buy a couple more territories for something that he already owns, and we spent 20-30 minutes talking about that, and we're like, man, we should have recorded that. That would have been great. So.
And depending on the franchise, he should have bought it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's still in that decision-making process. I think it was one of those, you have to decide in the next, 2 days to get the deal. So,
well, speaking of that, I think I had 2 hours to decide the last franchise that I bought. So I'll just go ahead and jump into that story since it seems to make sense. So it's a franchise that you guys all own, Club Pilates. And I've helped a lot of people find that brand over the past few years. And I've had a lot of conversations following up with people after they bought it, and they're just all so happy. And I thought, I wish there was an opportunity for me. In my market where I live, in the small town, there's no opportunity. Denver's the next biggest market, and it's been sold out for a long time. Anyway, I had someone that I was working with that had a chance to buy it, a couple locations that opened up, territories, and circumstances right when he was to wire funds, somebody lost a job and he couldn't buy it. And I thought, man, I should do that. I was out wake surfing at the time on the boat, and he called me up to deliver this bad news. Like, Erik, I can't buy it. And I felt really bad for him. He felt bad for me, which he should never have done. But I thought, oh my gosh, there's an opportunity for me. And so I called up the franchisor. I said, hey, this guy's not going to buy it. Can I buy it? And they basically said, yeah, but you have a couple hours to decide because, there's a list of people behind you. And so that is the record for opportunity presented to spending a lot of money to buy a franchise. I think it was about 2 hours, but it was the easiest decision I've ever made too. It was a quick decision, but there was at least 2 years of me learning the brand and being comfortable with it before I actually bought. So one way I made a decision in 2 hours, but another way it was a 2-year process.
So did you have a defined thought process when you're making that decision? Did you sit down with a pencil and paper and go pro con list? Did you how walk me through how you actually made the decision?
So I was literally on the boat, and he sent me a text. He's like, I've got bad news. And I thought, I feel bad for him. And I, talked to my wife. I said, I think we got an opportunity here. And my thought process was, I've been waiting for an opportunity in the Denver market, and I didn't do a P&L. I didn't do any of this stuff because I've talked to people like you and many others that call me out of the blue to tell me how well they're doing, how much money they're making, how quickly they made the money. And it was just an easy decision. The one thing that I had to understand is the specific market. And I knew the market was going to be okay. It's not the best territory or the best area in a particular market, but you know that as well. You don't, those things are already open. It's too late. So I could go with a subpar brand and get the best territory, or I could go with a premier brand and get a territory that is not the best territory. And so it was a no-brainer for me, as long as the demographics made sense and they did. It was an easy decision to make. But that was my one kind of pause, is the demographics. Is this going to be okay? And quite honestly, as I was thinking about it, I bought 3 territories, and I knew I could fit 2 stores in those markets. And maybe I could fit a third and maybe I could fit a fourth, but I went into it. I bought 3 knowing I could lock up that market, and I'm for sure going to put in 2. And the third one is just an option. And, I tell people that all the time, when you buy an area, you're buying for offense and defense. And so that was my thought process. And that's, as I look back, that's been my thought process all along.
Yeah. Buying a development territory is a lot like, a chess game. You buy this large area, and maybe you buy 3-unit development, 4-unit development. That doesn't necessarily mean that the long-term goal is to have 4. It means you need to get enough room to buy that, to get those ideal locations, that ideal real estate. Doesn't really matter how big the map is if the right centers aren't in there.
That's exactly it. And some people think the biggest decision is buying the franchise, but there's other decisions past that are big decisions. It's like, if I go in this part of town, then I don't really have a good location, the other part of town. And like you said, it's a chess game, and I'm going through that right now because we're getting ready to sign 2 leases in another concept in 2 different states.
So I'm sure that you see this a lot with first-time franchisees. They come in and they think, well, I'll just buy 1 and then see what happens, right? See how that goes. And if my experience is if you go in to buy a single territory, it's going to be hard to draw that map right to where your location's actually going to fit in that little space, right? So tell me about that. Like when someone says that to you, like, what do you think?
When someone so it's different when it's a retail brand versus a service brand, because a service brand, it doesn't really matter, but a retail brand, you definitely, so lesson number 1 for me, turn your cell phone on vibrate when you are on a call. So service brand, you can buy a single area, single territory, because it's typically a larger area, and you get to service that whole area and market, and you're not looking for a specific location that's really key to your business. But we're talking about retail franchises, and someone that wants to buy a single unit. The only reason to buy a single unit is if that's all you can really afford, and you can't afford a larger one, or you're in a market that, like, I'm out in South Dakota, the next, kind of single larger markets, Bozeman or Billings, Montana, and you go into that market, you buy a single, you own the entire market. So that, in that aspect, it makes a lot of sense. But if you're going into, like, we went into Lexington, Kentucky for profile, and I think we got 3 stores there, 2 or 3 stores, and that wouldn't have made sense to do a single, because you have to be able to be finding the real estate. And that's what it comes down to. And you want to find the best real estate in that market. And the best isn't always the shiniest one or whatever. It's whatever's best for that particular franchise. At Sola, we wanted large centers, and we want to take the worst location in that large center because the landlords have a hard time selling that. We're taking 7,000 square feet. So it made a lot of sense to go into a B center, into a C location, into the B center. But at Club Pilates, you don't want, a horrible location, so you don't want 7,000 square feet. So it really depends on the brand and the criteria for real estate as well.
Okay. So you mentioned service concepts versus retail concepts. Like, me primarily, like all the stuff I have is retail. So tell me, like, what are some examples of service franchises?
So I was talking to a guy, and he came from the tech business, and he had a very successful, actually 2 guys, one bought, one didn't buy, in the painting industry. The guy that didn't buy sold a technology company, made a bunch of money, had a massive net worth, and he said, Erik, I want in the service business. I don't care how great it looks, how sexy. I don't need to impress any of my friends with the best retail business. I want service, because I know that those things pump out money. And because my buddy, this is what he said, my buddy owns a painting business that just prints money. He's like, I wish I could get into the painting business in Austin, Texas, but I can't, because my buddy owns one and he's crushing it, and I can't compete with a buddy. So he loved service-based businesses like painting. Most people that come from a big exit in a tech company look at painting, they're like, I would never want to get into that business because they don't understand the margins. any business has bad things about it. Painting business is you're managing painters. That is no fun. But if you get into a brand that allows you to focus on customer service with your customers, which in the painting business, nobody's really happy with their painters because they leave a mess and all the things that go wrong with hiring a painting contractor. But if the owner is a business person that can manage those painters, and if the franchisor is feeding them leads so they don't have to go out and market all the time, so the franchisor is feeding them business, all they have to do is manage the homeowner to make sure they're happy. If you got a happy homeowner, you got a happy painters, and you can manage those too, then you're going to print money. So I actually had someone else that sold a tech business, and they partnered in a painting franchise, and they're loving it. They're loving life right now. And that was about 6 months ago.
Yeah, that's a really good point, right? Every once in a while, like recently, actually this weekend, I had a buddy kind of pitch me on like a hobby related business. It was we both we're big car fans, and he's like, hey, why don't we create this, this like experience around the automotive industry, and it sounded awesome, super sexy, and I just had to bust his bubble, and it's like, man, I don't really do sexy. I do practical. What's the math? Like, it doesn't really matter to me whether it's tax returns, Pilates, automotive service. It's things that people need to get done. I don't care what anybody thinks about the businesses that I'm in. They just have to make sense to me, and it's just a math thing. So
I think that is a very common mindset that I see with existing business owners. They have something, and that whether it's diversification as a plan or they're exiting something, want to get into something else. A lot of people, you and I aren't in this position where we bought sexy and cool business in the beginning. We were in a very unsexy business from the beginning. So right. It was, I guess that was lucky that we did that. But people that are in cool and sexy and hip and trendy and all that stuff, they love it for a time. And then once they get out of it, they're like, I don't want to be in that business. That was my hobby. That was fun. And I hate that stuff now. And I have a buddy that owns a boat company. And he's all, and I'm thinking, it seems like a dream business to own. You're playing with all these boats all the time. You're showing people how to use them. And he was, that's how I bought mine. He took me out in the lake and told me how to surf. And I'm like, this is fun. I wrote him a big check. And he said, are you used to writing big checks like this? And I said, not for toys, I'm not. Right. But I'm thinking that's a fun thing. And most people think that's fun to have a business like that. But whenever I call him, I'm like, hey man, it's noon on a Tuesday. Do you want to go surfing? Yeah. He's like, maybe this fall when I put on my wetsuit, when everything's done, he's like, I can't. And I'm like, no fun. I want my businesses to pay for my hobbies. And that's what I learned. In my early 20s, we got into the tax business, which, I never did a tax return because I don't know how to do them. But it taught me, get into a business that will print you money so you can do the things that you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's a clear thing. And, I think there's a lot of people who strive to maybe be passionate about their business, or you hear that a lot, right? Like you have to have a passion for what it is that you do. And I think that the passion's in the details. It's the passion of creating a business that's thriving and growing and has like you can see the trajectory. And that's what I really get excited about. It doesn't really matter what the vehicle is.
So your passion, like in your business, what would you say the passion is? You had to kind of in the Pilates business.
Yeah, in the Pilates business, that's one that could, people could say, oh, well, that's a, trendy, sexy business, but that's not what
I think that's what you said to me when I first told you about it. You're like, Erik, forget it. I've never done Pilates. I never will. It's fitness. Right. It's trendy. No, thank you. I'm thinking, dude, you're smarter than that.
That's a quick no. And I was one of your early guinea pigs in that concept.
You were the first guinea pig.
Yeah, that's right. So I did a ton of due diligence just in a really quick period of time. I think that you introducing me to that concept and us, wire transferring the money, I think it was less than 30 days, right?
It was.
It was really quick, right? So I think I went to Discovery Day within 7 days. And then after Discovery Day, we probably spent, a week or two negotiating the development territory. And then we we closed. And that was while having, so my boys were born end of May or end of April. And that would have been beginning of June. So there was a lot going on.
Yeah, there was.
We just finished completely doing an addition and remodeling our house. So it was a busy time period, but it's just, once you saw it, you got down there and you're like, okay, I get it. This makes sense to me. I understand who the customer is, what the product is, how well they thought out the concept. I love, like Anthony, the CEO of Club Buddies at the time when we purchased, he had thought of all the details of the business and had really thought it through. And that's what matters to me, is the details is where you win. So.
Yeah, definitely. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about diversification, because Club Pilates was diversification for you. It's diversification for me. My first business, I was in it for quite a while. And once I built that up and then I was thinking about diversification, then I ended up selling that over a couple years and then really started to diversify quickly. And, but, I think I've had some different mindset shifts in that time. And, even with diversification, retirement, I've never thought retirement. I've had buddies that thought I want to retire by the time I'm 40. I think retirement looks different for me than it does for, an older generation. But, what are your thoughts on diversification, retirement? What do you think?
I think you brought up a really good point. You said that you spent a long time on your first concept. And I think that that's an important thing to distinguish, because it does take a while to build that first foundational piece of your franchise business or investments. And that's what I did too. I owned just one concept, focused on it 100% for a little over 10 years, built something of significance. And then when I did decide to diversify, it was from that foundation. And I think that matters. So the way that I look at it now is, so I have boutique fitness, I have regional development, automotive service, and I still own, fairly significant tax business. So I think that you have a couple different types of diversification. You can diversify by region. So my Club Pilates studios are fairly, kind of spread out within the region, like different neighborhoods. And they all have strong economic strengths. Multi-unit is a way to kind of diversify. And then across different concepts, but you kind of have to be ready to go multi-concept. If you've built that strong foundation and a really good understanding of how to leverage your franchise business, it's not too challenging. But if you don't already have those skills, then it could be a real struggle. So tell me a little bit about all the different sectors you're in.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point there with diversifying geographically. And as you said, that I realized that I've done that on accident. It's easy to diversify geographically when you live in a town of 10,000 people. But looking back, when I first started I sold my tax businesses in Austin, Texas. And I thought, I want to put myself in a position to be able to capitalize on opportunities as they come. And we all know in franchising, if a concept's good, you don't have all day to, just to sit around and watch it come and go. It's going to be too late. So if I'm in small markets like Denver, and Denver's a smaller market compared to LA, San Diego, and Orange County. So I thought, instead of just trying to get the best stuff in Denver, be on it right away, I want to go to California. So if San Diego sold out, Orange County's still got area, or LA's got area, or something like that. And so that's originally why I chose California. And since then, we've got 12 Sola Salon studios in Orange County. And then, and I still own those. Back up about a year and a half ago, I think it was, I bought regional development for another brand with a business partner in LA County, because it was already sold out in the Inland Empire. It was sold out in San Diego and sold out in Orange County. So LA was it. I'm like, you know what? This is why I did that. So I could keep diversifying brands in California. And then, and I've since sold that, made money on it, and actually sold it to a friend. And he's taken that to a whole nother level. So it's great to to see how that happened. But it also made me realize I want to diversify out of California. Holy cow. I need to get, I want to, the brand that I recently bought does well in kind of middle America. And I wanted to go into some smaller markets where I could put in 1 to 3 stores in each market. And that's exactly what I've done. So I've got some in North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee. And I got some different partnership groups for different reasons in each of those markets. But yeah, so diversifying there geographically made a lot of sense. I'm in the health weight loss business there, so it's very different than anything that I've done before as well. But again, you look at that and you think trendy. You think of Pilates and you think trendy initially, but you realize, oh my gosh, it's been around forever. How long has Pilates been around? I don't know if you know or not. A long time.
So yeah, no. So it was started by Joseph Pilates, and it's definitely not a new fad. There is a big and a significant Pilates community way before Club Pilates, existed. But the way that we deliver our product, the way that we deliver the service is the very unique part of the platform. Like in each of my studios, we have, 60 to 65 classes a week. And if you look at, kind of your mom and pop Pilates studio, it's very rare for them to even have 20 classes a week. So the unique part of that concept is the way that we deliver the product. And I think that that's not trendy. I mean, you go and you see the value that our customers get out of coming and working out in our studios, and doesn't feel like a fad or a trend to me. So
what are you thinking in the future for diversification? Like, are you wanting to work harder? You wanting to make more money? You happy with where you are? And I found I go through seasons of this myself, where I enjoy some time where I'm hardly working at all, but then I want to work harder and invest time into more things and diversify in different ways. What are your thoughts around that?
That's a great question. And I think that there's a give and take in that. So the goal to make more money, at first for me, I have to sit back. I've spent a lot of time thinking about what I want. So, the goal to make more money, you have to figure out first, like, okay, if I want to make, I think that today the new like small business owner metric is to make $1 million a year. That's kind of what I'm calling the new millionaire. And, that's great. It's a good goal. And I have tons of friends with that goal. And I have tons of friends that actually achieve that goal. And, for me, I just had to sit down and figure out, okay, if I made $1 million, what would be the significance of that? And what would I want to do with that money? And it has to be bigger than me. Like I came from, a lower middle class family in the Midwest. And I've kind of went through the process of buying a lot of toys, buying a lot of stuff, and then that not really fulfilling me. So I'm like, all right, I don't really need to do that again. So now it has to have like a greater good. Like if I'm going to strive to make $1 million a year, then who am I going to help in that process? And, what's the bigger why? And so I'm going through that. And then I'm with you on the retirement thing. Like, I just don't see myself retiring. I love the thrill of the game. I love it. Like, that's what I get excited about, like growing things, building things, creating things. But I have 2-year-old twin boys, and I want to be, the guy that's coaching their soccer teams, their baseball teams, going camping, taking them out on, adventures, like big road trips. Like I don't want to be a slave to it. So I kind of think that my metrics is like, okay, how can I make $1 million a year, work less than 30 hours a week on the bad weeks, and love what I do every day? So to me, that's the recipe. What do you think about that? Sounds good, right? Why would you need to retire from that life? There's no need to.
No, you don't need to. And that's it. I think you're right. The $1 million a year is a new millionaire. And I look back and I think there's a shift from you ask a business owner this question, and you ask, someone that is in corporate America that question, I heard somebody on a podcast or something the other day talk about business owners. Like, how many of my business owner friends are like, I just can't wait to get back into corporate America. I really want to go into corporate America. Like, I never hear that, but I do hear people all the time on the phone saying, I can't wait to get out of corporate America. They feel so safe there in corporate America until, their job of 10, 15, 20 years says we don't need you anymore. And it's not nearly as safe as they thought. So a lot of people think their job is safe, and it's anything but safe. I mean, I see it all the time. And then I hear people talk about their job like it's so safe, and then it's gone. And so anyway, boggles my mind. But my business owner, so you ask somebody in corporate America that question, it is tied to a position and an income level. And that's the ladder that they climb. For a business owner, like I've reached my income goals a number of years ago. And so like, I don't need to make any more money. I'm not making decisions to make more money. I am making decisions to protect what I have and to grow what I have. Doing that through angel investing, which is the riskier play to make money. So that's me learning that game. I'm investing in real estate projects with people that are a lot smarter than me. So and that's very passive doing that, especially when you are around people that have been doing it for 50 years. I mean, the people that I'm investing with now, when I was a little kid, were doing it. So, and I was talking to somebody the other day, I'm like, the reason I'm investing with these guys is because they don't lose. They always win. He's like, yeah, you're right. They do always win. So I'm the dumbest guy in the room. I like to be the dumbest guy in the room. Sometimes I'm the smartest, and that's, I'd like to get out of that room as quickly as possible to be around really smart people that are, doing bigger and better things than I am. And it's not always to make more money, but it's always improving. So I love improving whatever it is, whether it's parenting, whether it's business, whatever it is, I like to improve what I'm doing. But back to the question on retirement, sometimes I think I'm retired because the only people that I get to go out and play with is my family or people that are actually retired. Going back to that boating question, I don't know what's a Monday and what's a Saturday. I mean, they flow together for me. And it was, I think, Monday or Tuesday of this week, I told my wife, I said, hey, babe, let's go boating today at noon. And she said, okay. And that's what we did. And because if you go boating during the week, the lake's empty and it's awesome. And we are weekday boaters, and weekend we stay home. But that's buying time. And someone told me a long time ago, use your money to buy time. And I've always done that. Even when I didn't have a lot of money, I had that mindset of I'm going to use my money to buy time. Even when I didn't even fully understand it, I was like, that's something I'm going to take with me when I become more successful. And I think about that when I'm out on the boat. I'm like, you know what? I got people working on my house. I've got people working on an office that I'm building. I've got all these people are working for me, and I don't hesitate to pay them for it. For a lot of different reasons with that as well. But I love time, and it's time to play. It's time with my family, and it's time to work on my businesses when I want to work on my businesses. And back to your questions on why I bought Club Pilates, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to have to put some time into it this year, but the return that it's going to give me is, even if I take that money that it gives me to pay other people to do other things for me that I don't like, it's worth it. Because I just bought another, 10, 20 hours a week because I have 3 of these things up and going.
And a stream of cash, right? So you brought up a lot of really good points right there. So one of the best pieces of advice I heard, or philosophies I heard like early on in my career is, how do you define wealth and being wealthy? And the answer was, I get to choose how to use my time. And to me, that's the biggest form of wealth, is I get to choose how to use my time. And today I do, like on our previous podcast, I talked about, creating the average, the perfect average day. And honestly, I think I'm 6 months away from almost 80% of my days being the perfect average day. And this week it's really kind of been that, I get up, I take my boys to daycare, no hurry. Like we're lucky if we get them to daycare by 8:30. It's just like everything is super casual in the mornings. And a lot of times I take them in my gym clothes. From there, I go to the gym, work out, come back, and work on my to-do list. And I mean, it's very casual life. And that's in contrast to, I have other buddies that, make great livings. Like I had a conversation with, a very successful attorney. We were talking about his opportunities and his life. And, every hour that he doesn't bill takes money out of his pocket. And every day that he doesn't work, it's like a $2,000 day. Like he loses $2,000 by screwing off. And I'm like, man, my goal is to make as much money as I can doing things I love. And, I hate to say work as little as possible, but that's how I look at it, right? Like if I spend the least amount of time on X thing, that means I can do either more things or have more time. So one of the really good points you brought up there is getting yourself in the room with really smart people. And being from a town of 10,000 people, how did you get in those rooms? How did you make those connections? How did you find these, real estate investors?
There are any town. So it's a unique area that we live. It's kind of a little mountain community, and there are people that live here because they want to live here. You think of South Dakota, you think of plains and ugly, but we're in the Black Hills where it's beautiful. And people think, oh, you could probably get real estate really cheap there. Well, you can about 10 miles away, but not right here. There's a lot going on in this little community. And there are people that have helped build this community to what it is. And I've known them growing up, people that own large construction businesses that did work, over a 5-state area. And so I've known a lot of the, kind of movers and shakers in the small little community. And then some of them have made their money by basically every development in town, every building you see is they've built it. So I came back here. I moved back about 6 years ago, and about 3 years ago, I went in to go see some of these investors and real estate people. And I said, hey, I want an opportunity. I don't know where there is opportunity, but I want an opportunity to invest into this community because I can't put franchises in here because it's too small for most of them. But I want to put money into my community. Let me know if there's something that comes up. And we'd had conversations, and they told me about some buildings for sale and different things, and nothing made sense. And then about a year and a half ago, they started to have some meetings with a few people like me. And they're like, you know what, we're going to start investing and doing some different things. Do you want to join this group? And I said, who's in it? And there's some smart people. And I said, I want to be in that group. And half of the people, the meetings got too long for them and they went away. My purpose in that meeting was to build relationships with these guys. And I built some relationships with them. And then an opportunity came along, and they're like, we got this new development along the creek. There's not going to be anything like it. Do you want to invest? And I said, yeah, I'm in. And I didn't say, yes, I'm in because it was such a great financial return. I said, I'm in because my return, let's just call it $100,000. I put $100,000 of cash into this. I want a 10% return on that money. And it doesn't need to be $10,000 a year. I need to get $10,000 out of value out of these guys every year. And that's how I go into it. So I go into these meetings and I'm looking at things that make sense, that they're from a business standpoint on the investment side. We need to cut expenses here, do this for rent. But I'm also taking notes on how are they interacting with each other? What's their mindset here? And so that's where I'm getting my return, is being in the room, and not just being in there, but being purposeful to learn from them.
And so you're talking about $10,000 in education, right? Like it's not just the return potential on your investment, it's also education. So that's awesome that you were a part of that community. That's where you came from and you had those connections, but not everyone starts out that way. So I just recently moved to the Sacramento market. Before I moved here, I'd only been here, 2 or 3 times. Didn't really know anyone. It was a big move for us. So I'm really lucky. I joined an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization in the Sacramento chapter, and I've gotten really involved with that. I almost immediately got on the board of the chapter, and through that, I've made some really, really good connections. And surrounding yourself by people that are smarter than you is such a key part of keeping your growth going as a person. Like, I've got some really smart friends, but they've chosen to keep their sphere of influence equal or below them. And I've watched them stagnate because of that. And so I'm striving to spend my time with guys that are either where I want to go or have already had significant exits from their businesses. Yesterday I had coffee with a guy that just had just sold his business like a year or two ago for over $60 million. And, he's got a lot of wisdom. He's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of knowledge. And a lot of those guys are looking for people who want to absorb it. Now, you can't go into that relationship wanting something from them in the sense of thinking like that's how it's going to be, like, oh, they're going to give you something. But what you can do is figure out ways to help them, ways to help them reach whatever their goals are. And then once you show that you care more about, that relationship than any financial outcome, it really takes it to the next level.
No, that's it. I think, so you helped me get involved with another group. You told me about this conference that you're going to, and I'm like, yeah, you should go. And then I eventually went, and they had a mastermind that, is part of it. And it's like $25,000 a year to join. And you certainly encouraged me to do it. You love spending my money.
Each other's money.
Yeah. I love spending your money. So I joined, and it's not only, very successful people in there, massive businesses, but it's also very technology driven, in the internet space and different things. So it's out of my comfort zone there, out of my area of familiarity in franchising, but I knew I needed to push myself in a different way, even in business. And so I could see things differently. And so I've been a part of this group, and there's some people in there that know franchising, and actually that have, given me some advice that for, where I'm going to be in probably, 5 or 10 years. So, I've already received $25,000 worth of value out of that particular mastermind. So I'm sure when the time comes in 6 months to pay another $25,000, I'll do it. I'm sure you'll encourage me to do it as well. But yeah, you can find groups like I did locally that are people a lot smarter or a little smarter than you. It doesn't matter. You just need to surround yourselves around those people. Or there's groups that you can pay to be a part of that will help you get better with whatever it is. So there's really no excuse out there. Even then, you can join Facebook groups. If you're just a hermit in the middle of nowhere, you don't have anybody around, you can join Facebook groups around, have really smart people in these groups. And it's amazing. Like for me personally, it goes back to like kind of our conversation, retirement. And I want to be productive. So it's not about making more money. It's about being productive. It's not about just playing all the time. It's about being productive. And so productive doesn't necessarily mean making more money. It might mean giving back to people. I'll have people that want to talk to me about franchising, and I'll charge people $1,000 an hour. If they want to talk to me, okay, $1,000 an hour, and they'll pay me for that. Other times there are people that are just like, Erik, can I have some time? And can you, I'm on the phone with them, and I'll give them 30 minutes of my time. They have no clue, that it's really worth $1,000 an hour. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I want to do that for them. Like I enjoy helping people that want to learn. Now, if they're arrogant, they're really not wanting to learn, I know I can't move the needle with this person, forget it. It's going to be, hey, I can't help you, click. It'll be much nicer than that. But for people that want to learn, there are people out there that would love to give advice and to help you grow.
Yeah. I in that meeting yesterday that I had, I caught myself making the mistake that just drives me crazy. I had asked this guy for his time. He was giving me his, some feedback, some ideas, some awesome insight. And I just caught myself saying like, oh, well, I'm already doing that. And I'm like, oh man. And I told him, I'm like, just caught myself making one of the biggest mistakes you can when you're with someone that's accomplished more and knows more. Like, you're trying to almost in some ways give them advice, and it's hilarious. And so I got that shut down. And because I was closing my mind to the things that he was saying, and I said, all right, I just need to flip this a little bit and, all right, tell me what you think. And then I'm just going to start, writing down the ideas. And then later I'm going to go through and think through those instead of trying to, defend myself on the spot. It's on like, oh, well, I've already done that, So see that all the time.
So many people, one of the questions that I ask people before they start working with me, I say, are you quick to ask questions or make assumptions? Because we're all quick to make assumptions naturally, but I ask them that because I want to come back to that. And I'm like, you're assuming right now and you're talking to me and I know more about this in this particular area than you. So don't make an assumption. Let me help you ask a better question. So what are some of the better questions that you started to ask this guy?
I just wanted to super, super sharp guy. And what the conversation we started out was like, how can I get more involved in the community? How can I maybe take some like nonprofit board roles? Cause that's kind of where I'm at right now is I'm trying to figure out, where I can spend my time to make, Sacramento better as like a new person coming here. I think we're going to stay here for a long time. And, kind of just listening to him and his feedback and where we finally got to was he said, right now where you're at in life, that's probably not what you want to focus on. You've got young kids, you're building your businesses, you probably don't really need to take on like a board level role. You probably just should, step up and help out on some committees, do what you can, but you don't have the time to do that. I said, okay, well, that's awesome feedback and definitely not where I thought the conversation was going. And then we just started brainstorming. It's like, okay, well, what are the things that you've done? And what do you really like to do? He encouraged me to go take this Strength Finders test to find out, like what are your real strengths? And I already kind of knew, but I went ahead and took the test and it really identified some things that I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely me. I need to leverage those strengths more. And then we talked about, I own a regional development for a franchise concept for Northern California called Honest One Auto Care. And we kind of talked about, what would be the strategic way to do that? Should I go and get a private equity firm to help me build out 10 to 15 locations in my market? And that's something that I kind of closed my mind to. And he's like, yeah, I mean, it makes tons of sense. Like that's something I might be interested in investing in. And it was funny. That was where I realized I was shutting him down because I'd already thought of that, right? I'd already thought of that, but the missing part was I didn't have the relationships with the private equity firm and he's starting one, right? And so if I hadn't realized it, I probably would have just stuck my foot in my mouth and closed the door on that potential, relationship partnership. So it was awesome. It was really good.
Gosh, I see it. I mean, myself, I start making assumptions and I realize I need to ask the right questions in even when working with people, helping people find franchises. It's easy for me to assume that everybody would want a semi-absentee business because that's what I like. I'm like, no, I can't do that because some people really do want to buy a job. And it's really the right thing for some people. Yeah. But asking questions and when I first got started in business, I had a mentor of mine that he would just have a group of guys over to his house for dinner once a week and we would just eat and he would just ask us questions and we would tell him and he would give us advice. But it really kind of solidified in my mind that if you're good at asking questions, you're going to get access to really good information. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I've worked on over the years is asking the right questions to the right people at the right time. And there's treasures that you get from that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's gold. And these guys that have been there and done all the things that you want to do, and you can't really assume anything about them. You just need to ask them. I love what you just said about assuming everyone wants semi-absentee and some people just want a job, because there are some negatives to semi-absentee, right? Like if you don't having a lot of extra free time can be a dangerous thing. I'm pretty sure I didn't work in the month of February, and that was not good for me. That was not a productive month of my life. So
this month I'm gone from July 9th through the 29th, going to Memphis, going to Alaska to go fishing with my dad. Because I said, Dad, I've never been fishing in Alaska. We both love to fish. I'm like, I'm taking you to Alaska and we're going fishing. We're going to have fun. And so that's what we're doing. my wife says, what am I going to do when you're gone this whole time? I said, fly to Hawaii, go spend time with your sister, with our girl. So I don't feel bad about fishing in Alaska. So they're flying to Hawaii for like 3 or 2 weeks. We're both flying back to LA like at 5 a.m., both red-eye flights. So I have some 2 days of meetings in Newport Beach, and then like 3 days or 4 days at Disneyland, and then heading home. So my month of July is shot as well, but nothing's gonna go wrong. I mean, everything just stays status quo.
Yeah, you can't do it for too long, but you definitely can take that extended period of breaks once you get to this point.
Another conversation for another day is it sounds great right now, everything that we've done, where we are, and it is great. There's no puffing up of what our lives are really like. But early on, I'll speak for myself personally, there were many very early mornings and late nights building my first business to put me in a place like this. But with that, there were mindset shifts that I did not want to continue to do that. And I was not chasing the dollar, because I could be making 5 times the amount of money that I am right now if I'm still chasing money versus enjoying time freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think the struggles are definitely something that we want to share through the podcast. I mean, it's working. I've walked outside and it was daylight and I hadn't left work since the previous day. So, I mean, there's definitely those struggles, empty bank accounts, but I think that's part of the story that, I really kind of cherish those struggles at this point. Like, I remember them fondly. They weren't that fun.
So the struggle is the next episode.
Well,
hey, this was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a blast. All right.
Next time I'll have my I Love Franchising mug versus my Arrowhead. This is by you, at least, kind of.
Yeah, maybe. See it? There you go. I love franchising.
Love it.
Almost every day. So, all right, man. Talk to you later.